welcome to Skeptics and Seekers, the podcast. I'm your host, David Johnson, and I'm also joined by...
Hi, I'm Dale, alias Dag. I'm representing the Christian or Seeker view.
And today we're going to do what we will normally do on this podcast. We are going to have a discussion based on what we have written on the Skeptics and Seekers blog. And so blogs are a little bit static. You write a bunch of words. The other person sees what you write. They write a bunch of words, but it doesn't make for much of a conversation. And so this is a chance where we can come together and talk about the stuff we've written about and have a fuller conversation. Maybe the podcast will last 10 minutes. Maybe it'll last an hour. It depends on how good the conversation is and how wrong Dale happens to be on any given week. So,
absolutely. It's all on me, huh?
Pretty much. So what we're gonna talk about today, and we thought it would be a great way to introduce this podcast, is we wanted to say nice things about the other person's position, which in the grand scheme of things is probably going to be the toughest podcast we ever do. I'm going to talk about the Christian's strongest arguments, and I'm also going to talk about the atheist's weakest arguments. Dale, on the other hand, is going to talk about the atheist's strongest arguments and the Christian's weakest arguments. And so without any further ado, I'm going to let Dale go ahead and kick us off.
Yeah, and just before I get started, I just wanted to say I think this is a great idea to get started. I was telling you before, it reminds me of a show that Justin Briley did on his show where Michael Roos, they switched the roles. Michael Roos was actually playing the Christian, and I think it was Randall Rouser who's doing the atheist. And I think this is a great way to understand the other side of the debate. So I think this is a great idea, and I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, I'll get straight into it. So what do I think is the best atheist argument? So it's, in terms of the best atheistic argument, I actually think it's the hiddenness of God. However, the main skeptical argument that's caused me the most frustration in my search is Stephen Law's evil God challenge. And the reason I think it's so effective is basically the whole case for Christianity rests on the fact that God exists. And the evil God challenge is just so effective at neutralizing almost every single objective argument that the Christian raises. It neutralizes the Kalam cosmological argument. It neutralizes, the teleological argument, and even the ontological argument as well, I think. So, all in all, I think that evil God challenge has been the most effective and frustrating argument that atheists have raised that I'm aware of. So yeah, and I'll pass it along to David. I think he's going to give the best Christian argument.
Okay, well, first of all, I agree with your assessment that the argument from hiddenness, which is not something that I wrote in the blog, is a particularly tough argument to beat. But I also agree with you that the evil God argument, it kind of transcends all of the other arguments, really, because it doesn't matter if the other arguments are right. So I think that's the brilliance of the evil God argument. Just as an argument tactic, it's hard to fight against. Now, whether or not it is actually a good argument, we would have to sort that out, and I assure you we will. But as far as just assessing the value of the argument as an argument, it's really hard to beat the evil God argument because it really does bypass everything else that the Christian is prepared to defend.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I said, it's kept me up late at night sometimes. Definitely, it's something that I think needs to be reckoned with, because obviously we want God to be a maximally great being. We want Him to be all good, so that we can trust Him and have faith in Him for our salvation. So. It's kudos to Stephen Law. He's definitely given us something to think about with that one.
That said, the Christian has a couple of arguments that are really hard to deny. Mm-hmm. So this is going to be tougher coming from me than I think yours was coming from you, because I don't actually like to admit anything positive in Christian arguments. So,
Okay.
and for the most part, I really do believe they're all bad. They're all bad. I stayed up late at night on a couple of nights just trying to think about what I was going to say for this one, and I'm the one who came up with the idea for the show. So that said, there are a couple of good ones that I just want to go ahead and acknowledge, and I don't have a good refutation for either one of them. So if you find that we are in a discussion, you can always bring these up and use them against me. Hopefully, I will come up with something by then. But I'm going to present you two, because I think the Christian arguments break down in two different ways. One of them is the argument of what would it take for me personally to believe and become a Christian. And so that's not an argument that someone makes to me. It is the challenge to myself of what would it take to make me think that Christianity is right. And in fact, any Christian, if they want to give up the evangelistic position and just talk about why they are a Christian, I think the best argument is the internal witness of the Holy Spirit. It is personal experience. It is God spoke to me. God gave me a vision. He directed my life. He fueled my heart in some way that I cannot otherwise explain. Now, I know that skeptics listening to this will think that those are particularly bad arguments. And if you're trying to convince someone, I think they're particularly bad arguments too. But frankly, I think if you're trying to convince yourself, falsifiability, for instance, is not an issue. I believe that you have said this before, and this is one of the places where the skeptic really has to acknowledge that falsifiability is not the end all be all. And we have both in separate discussions used as an example the person who is accused of a crime and the police believe that they have all of the evidence they need. The only thing is the person who is accused knows for a fact that they didn't do it.
Yeah.
Now, all of the evidence may be pointing to them, and they know for a fact they can't do it. They can't prove it. They can't falsify any of the evidence, but they're also not guilty. And so that's where falsifiability really doesn't matter. And in the same way, in religion, if you are convinced that God has spoken to you or has directed you in some way, no one outside of you can prove that didn't happen.
Exactly. And one thing, if I don't mind me just stepping in here for a second, I think you sort of get it, but there's an important difference. This isn't just an argument from religious experience. It's not a deductive, objective argument in that way. And it's also not just appealing to religious feelings or something like that. Oh, I feel good when I think of Christianity, therefore it's true. Or as the Mormons say, I have a burning in my bosom. This is actually knowledge. It's one of the different forms of knowledge called acquaintance knowledge, as opposed to derivative knowledge, which is where logical deduction or inference to the best explanation, that sort of thing comes into play. So this is actually a claim to have knowledge. It's not just appeal to feelings or something like that.
Right. And so the problem with the claim to have knowledge is I can't get inside of you and know whether you're really having knowledge or whether you're really just expressing strong feelings. I can't know that. So it is a truly internal matter.
Yeah.
If you claim that this is knowledge, this is why a few years ago I stopped debating people about their personal experiences. I will just accept any personal experience that someone offers as true to them as they can make it. And I just assume that people are not lying about their personal experiences. Now, that said, I think many people are lying about their personal experiences. I think that people have a lot of incentives, faith healers and such. I think there are a lot of incentives for people to lie about it, but I can't prove that people are lying about it. And
Yeah.
they may have had the personal experience exactly the way they said they did. Now, I think that there are plenty of ways for me to address that and discuss that without acknowledging that their God is real. But I cannot argue that they should not believe in that God.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with that assessment. I think the best you can do is, okay, you remain true to yourself. You're not going to be convinced by that line of evidence. Maybe you can throw out some examples for them to consider. If they're truly being honest with themselves, well, Mormons claim this, or Muslims might claim this type of evidence as well. So, what is the difference? Do you truly have knowledge, or are you just deluding yourself? So, I think that's really the best you can do as a skeptic, is give them something to consider. Are you being truthful that this is actually knowledge, as opposed to, you're just having a feeling, or you're tricking yourself. So I think that's the best you can do on your end when someone brings up that type of argument.
Right, and it's also the answer that I would give. I think if I wanted to answer the question directly of what would it take to get you to believe, I think what it would take is for God to give me that kind of experience that He has given others that have made them so sure of it. So, I'm available. You can knock me on my butt to the road to Damascus. Whatever it takes. God can give me that experience, and I may sound like a babbling idiot to other people, but if I think there is a type of experience that He could give me that would qualify as internal knowledge for me. For instance, He can appear to me in a form I don't expect, and He can tell me things about the universe that I don't currently know. And then I can check that information later against people who do know the answers, against physics and science, but there's a limited knowledge I have of physics and science. He could tell me a lot of things in a personal experience that would convince me, yeah, I never heard that before, I didn't know that before, and now I've verified it and I know it. This must be some being outside of myself. So I think it is possible for God to prove Himself in that way if He wanted to.
Okay, let me ask you this then. I'm interested because I know you've given me a bit about your background, that you grew up as a Christian for 40 years before you finally eventually decided to leave. At any point during your time as a Christian, did you have any experience? It doesn't have to be an explicit, like a vision from God. It could just be, most people, it's just an inner witness within their heart that Christianity is true. Did you ever have any kind of experience that you thought at that time was the Holy Spirit attesting to the truth of Christianity at all?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I almost hate to admit that because I wanted to have that experience. I can't tell you how many times I have prayed for that experience. In fact, one of the things I used to ask God is, or I used to say to God is, just give me that experience. Let me see your face. I don't care if it drives me insane. If it kills me, I'll die happy. Just let me die with that knowledge certain. And I never got it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I just was interested for my own sake. If you ever had anything that you would have possibly qualified under that sort of thing, but yeah, you have to be honest yourself. If you didn't experience anything like that, then that's the way it is. As long as you continue to remain open-minded, don't become stubborn or hard-hearted. Me and you have had conversations about that in the before. So yeah, if you remain open and fulfill your obligation, then I do think the ball's in God's court. He will, some way or another, He will reveal that truth to you before the consequences of not believing or not being saved would take effect. So
Yeah, but that's almost another conversation because I didn't say that I wasn't
true.
stubborn and hard-hearted.
Yeah.
I'm not. So right now, I'm pretty sure that you could rightly call me stubborn and hard-hearted. I don't think that you could have called me that at the time, but I would argue that there is a time when a person has to walk away from a failed experiment. and
Gotcha.
acknowledge it as a failed experiment. It's unreasonable to say, well, you just have to keep trying it for your entire life until you die. That becomes
Oh,
unreasonable. And so if you agree that that's unreasonable, then
yeah.
it's just a matter of deciding, well, when is it reasonable to give up?
Oh, okay. So yeah. So that's actually a good segue into the next topic because I'm going to be talking about
It's almost a good segue into your next topic. I am sorry to destroy your segue. It was beautiful, and I hope you get another opportunity. But I am actually going to give you, as much as it pains me, another strong
Okay.
Christian argument,
Okay.
because there is the other part that I think is really important, which is the evangelistic part of it. So this is the argument that you as a Christian would give to someone else to convince them. And for me, the only argument that I think would work is not really an argument, but more of a call to action. So it would be something like, let me tell you about the gospel as I understand it. And maybe you have that conversation. Maybe the person does not accept that. And you would say, that's fine that you don't accept that. What I would ask you to do is try it before accepting it. And the way I'm going to ask you to try it is, our church, our mission is doing X, Y, and Z for good cause X, Y, and Z. And we need as many people helping us as we can. So whether or not you agree with our position, join us at least that much, as far as you can, in doing this good thing, or carrying out this good cause for people. And just enjoy our company as a community. And then if the Spirit of God speaks to you or moves you in some way, all the better. Just be receptive to that. But you don't have to be receptive to that to just have enough faith to join us in this thing that we both agree on. And I think that if a Christian approached me in that way, I would almost have no choice but to accept, because I also want to do good things for good people. And if along the way their God can communicate with me in some meaningful way, and build that faith and trust, then all the better. But I think that I would be responsive to that type of pitch.
Okay. Okay. So I'm trying to think what I would say with the, if I understand you correctly, the evangelistic is sort of, you repeatedly mentioned sort of bring you, in order to give them the good news, you have to first bring up bad news, and saying, using that as sort of an argument is not a good one. But what if it's not, what if it's accompanied by the inner witness of the Holy Spirit? So, I tell you, I'm just as a missionary, I'm telling you that you're a sinner and you're going to hell, whatever the bad news is. But maybe people are not just, it's not like a fear tactic. People are being convicted of that through the inner witness of the Holy Spirit, and they're saying, you know what, you're right, I am a sinner. Yeah, what's the solution? Tell me that. And it comes with that subjective verification for those individual people. Would you object to the missionaries evangelizing and spreading the bad news based on the fact that it is being verified, just not with objective evidence? It's not just an
No,
assertion. Okay.
no,
Okay.
I would not object to that. Because what the evangelist is doing is, if I can borrow a biblical term, what they're saying is taste and see. And that taste and see works with the good news and the bad news. So just be open a little bit and see if there's a conviction, one way or the other. And you don't have to open yourself up to the point of a strong faith. Just open yourself up enough to join us in this mission. And
Gotcha.
if the Christian can give the skeptic some way of getting in that does not involve them accepting the whole thing, hook, line, and sinker, I think that the gradual conversion method is a very powerful method, because you both start off on something that you agree with. You both want to feed poor people in your community. So you both want to make this soup kitchen work. You both want to serve and raise money for this cause. Great. Let's do that. And God will work with you through that. And if he doesn't, great. We at least got some work done together. And if he does, then you become converted over time.
Okay, well, so this actually, again, I'm going to segue now into, because the next thing is for me to present the worst Christian, or I interpret it as not even just Christian, it's religious argument that I find it. And basically it's what you're saying. It's the just try it argument. I don't think this is a good thing, because I've heard it from Buddhists, I've heard it Hindus, Muslims and Christians. If it's just to try it, maybe temporarily, like you're reading the Gospel of John and seeing if it speaks to you, but usually it's accompanied by this is a long-term process. You can't just try it for like a month or something and see if it takes. You got to try this for years, or even possibly the rest of your life. And that was something that I think is a wrong way to approach it. Because just try what? Should I just try Buddhism? Should I just try Christianity? It's arbitrary that way. So I actually think that's the worst Christian argument that you could give, is the just try it one. I don't know what you would make in light of what I'm saying on that front.
Well, I agree if the argument is just cast your belief in this thing. So when I say just try it, it has to be some practical thing that a person can actually do and is inclined to do anyway. So by just try it, we're talking about, if you're talking about a certain type of Christianity, this probably wouldn't work for evangelical Christianity, but for the more liberal branches of Christianity and spreading the love of God and the peace that passes understanding and whatever all that entails, just try it might mean, we're Christian humanists, you're secular humanists, but we both want to feed poor people. So just try it might mean join us in feeding poor people, and then give the Spirit a chance to speak to you through that operation. Well, I don't care anything about the Spirit speaking to me through that operation, but I do care about feeding poor people. So I am willing to say, I'm willing to do this thing that I want to do anyway, and you're willing to give that credit as a trial. So we can do that. Now, maybe for me, I like to read. Maybe I just love reading ancient religious material. And you say, well, I tell you what, don't worry about the whole Bible. No one can do that. Read the first 10 chapters of John. And then when I come back next week, tell me if that sparked your interest at all. That's a just try it that I can live with, because it's something I'm inclined to do anyway, and it doesn't require me investing any faith in the thing to do it. And so if Christians can form their just try it pitch in a way that aligns with what the skeptic wanted to do anyway, and that does not require them to have some additional amount of faith that they would have to manufacture, then I think that it can be a good pitch. But as you present it, yes, it's awful.
Yeah.
But I'm just coming up with a way to make it better.
You would be surprised. You would be surprised. This is a common argument that I've heard multiple times when I was on my religious journey, and I can't do that. You're forcing me to make a faith commitment as a trial and error thing, and I just can't do it. It's arbitrary. What do I go to the Buddhists and commit to them, and maybe after 80 years I might, oh, you were right, it is true, or something like that. I think the warrant for the belief has to come prior to the commitment. So, it is common. I know it's not a good one, but yeah, I've heard it multiple times, I have to say.
Yeah. Well, so speaking to that, it is true that atheists have some bad arguments too. In fact, I think that atheists have a lot of bad arguments. Now, a lot of the arguments that atheists make that Christians think are bad, I actually think are very good arguments. So, but I will talk about the argument, or maybe the category of argument that takes in a lot of atheist arguments that I would say are bad. So anything that falls into this category, which is to say, I don't believe in God because I am uncomfortable with the idea of God. I think there's a lot of that, and there are a lot of ways that people come to that place. So if I can talk about just for a moment a bad Christian argument, it's the same category of arguments. So you will see in my writing, I talk about this quite a bit, the argument from existential angst, where the Christian makes a statement that is uncomfortable, and because it's uncomfortable, God must be the answer. There must be some solution to this uncomfortable thing that I brought up. So maybe it's I can't understand my purpose in the universe if there's no God. So therefore I'll believe in God. Or how can we possibly know what's right or wrong if there's no ultimate moral judge? How can we know that life is going to be fair if there's no one to make it fair? You see how uncomfortable this is? Therefore, there must be God. That's better. So that's the argument from existential angst. And I think there's a whole category of arguments that fit into that. That said, I think that atheists do the same thing in a lot of ways. So, the argument from the atheist side may be something like, I like having my freedom, and I don't want someone telling me what to do. I don't want to acknowledge some authority over my life that's greater than me. Therefore, I don't believe in God. That's how this argument from existential angst works both ways.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I think you've said it all. There's actually nothing to add. I do agree with the way you phrased that. This is a bad atheistic argument. Period. Part of becoming a Christian, at least, is being willing to obey Jesus and to submit to God's authority, because you have faith and trust that what He's commanding you to do is right, is morally right. It is for your benefit and for His benefit and for all humanity's benefit in general. And, I definitely see if you're stubborn in that, no, I'm my own authority, I'll decide what's best for me, then and that's your reason, even if you know Christianity is true, but you refuse to become a Christian just because of that. There's not much I can say, but amen. I agree with you 100%.
And with that, let's transition to our final segment, okay, which is just some general nice things about the other camp. This is a tough one. But
you mean I have to give you a compliment? I don't know if I can do that.
No, not me personally. There's not a lot that you can compliment about me personally. But what I'm going to ask you to do is, in a sense, give atheists a compliment. So I'll start because this is easy for me. I was a Christian all my life, most of my life. From the time I was baptized at 7, but I was born into the church. I hung on to faith until around 40, maybe a little after. And everybody I know is a Christian. My contacts list is full of Christians. I don't actually know very many atheists compared to the number of Christians I know. And the majority of Christians that I know are really good people. Now, I think they would have been really good people without Christianity. But our worldview was Christian, and we don't get to roll the experiment again without us being Christian. So you can't say that they were good because they're Christians, and I can't say for sure that they would be good had they not been Christians. But the Christians that I knew and called friend over the years, I genuinely miss a relationship with them. They were good in almost every way that I could think of as good. Now, don't get me wrong, I knew plenty of evil Christians too. But by and large, they seemed to be a people that really took goodness seriously. And I owe a lot of the goodness that I have in me now to Christians who acted within their worldview.
Yeah, I think you're right. But again, on that, there's good and bad in every group. I guess you can take me as the worst example. I don't know, but no, I'm just joking. Yeah, I think that there are definitely Christians have a commitment in general to wanting to do what's morally right and what's the benefit for others, and that's actually when I was thinking the best qualities of Christians, what would be one thing it would all boil down to? And basically, I agree with Paul. It's they have this tremendous loving nature for themselves and towards others. They're commanded to put others before themselves at times out of love. And I forget where it is. You'll probably know better than me. In the Bible, where Paul's, I think it's 1 Corinthians 13, where it's if I have all the superpowers, if I can prophesy, or I'm the best teacher and I know all things, if I don't have love, I'm nothing, and I'm a clanging cymbal. That had a tremendous impact on me, and I aspire to show that Christ-like love and become more loving towards others and that sort of thing myself. So I think that's the best quality that I can think of that I've noticed of Christians.
Yeah, I was trying to be nice, and then you dragged Paul into it.
Okay.
So, so let me just say this: I don't think that Christians are good because their Bible says to be good. Now, I know that they frame their goodness in those terms, but I don't think that's why they're good. And I have two reasons for saying that. One, so many Christians, especially what I would call the liberal Christians, they have a type of goodness and worldview that the God of the Bible does not seem to have. So they have truly recreated the God of the Bible into their own good image. They are not taking on the image of that God of the Bible. They're taking things that God did that we would all consider pretty atrocious and reframing it in a way that makes it less so. Why? Because they are good, and they are good beyond the confines of their Bible. The other reason I would say that Christians are good, not because of their Bible, is because I've seen many Christians walk away from faith just like I have, and they remained good. So even without that biblical context, they remained good people. In some cases, became even better people. So I would argue that while Christians do tend to be good people, it's not because of the God of the Bible. It's because they are good people and they are attracted to Christianity because they are good and they're attracted to a thing that seems good as well.
So I'd say, of course, the Bible. It's in a way I could say it is because of the God of the Bible, since I believe Christianity is true. All human beings are made in the image of God. So it's not that you have to be a Christian to be loving. It's not a unique quality. I didn't mean it to come across as that. But from a Christian worldview, because human beings are made in the image of God, this is why they reflect a loving nature, whether they're Christians or not. And certainly the Bible, the Apostle Paul's command reflects that fact that we are made in the image of God, and gives us an additional support that, hey, this is the chief concern. So that's what I was trying to say is, I think if I had to label what's one of the best qualities that Christians should display or have by and large, it would be that. But I didn't mean to imply that it's a unique attribute that people just get because they read, oh, the Bible commands me to be loving, therefore I will be. That makes sense.
Yes, and I believe that you had some nice things to say about atheism before you left.
Yep. So I think, again, boiling it down to one thing, this does not apply to you, David. But, no, I'm joking. One thing that I really respect about skeptics, whether they're atheists, whatever they are, is a willingness to question everything. And this isn't always the case with Christians or religious people. For some Christians that I know personally, some topics are just off limits. You can't even question that. You just take it as a given, and that's it. And mainly they come from a presuppositionalist perspective and that sort of thing. So I think you need to wrestle with everything in order to get the truth. You need to be at least willing to do that. So that's one quality that I think skeptics bring out and benefit us as Christians. How do you know God exists? Don't just assume, does God exist? Let's question this. What are your reasons for believing Christianity is true, or that sort of thing? That's what I would say is one of the good qualities of having you skeptics around to help us out to improve.
Well, so I agree with that, and I thank you for that observation. And I will just say, as a personal observation, this is one of the reasons why you were chosen to do this podcast, because you are one of the few Christians that I communicate with on a regular basis on a discussion board who never dodges anything. You address the difficult things head on. You never try to dodge a question just for the sake of trying to win an argument or to avoid losing an argument. It's you're the most honest Christian interlocutor I've ever met, and so I think that this quality of atheists that you have spotted is one that you have managed to manifest in spades.
Excellent. Jeez, wow, thank you so much. Yeah, it is something. I think I told you when I started on the board. I really sincerely am interested in the truth and making sure that my reasons or anything that I do, especially now as a Christian, I have a duty to make sure that my comments are edifying and that I'm answering directly the tough questions to the best of my ability. And I also have a sincere, when people bring up an issue, for example, I might not know the answer to it, but I really want to wrestle with it and try my best to see if there is an answer or justification. And if I can't find it, then just admit, you know what, I don't know this answer. So one example I can think of that's come up on the boards is there is a moral question of the Exodus plagues, or at least some of them. Are they cruel and unusual punishment? And this is a topic in and of itself, so we're not going to get too much into it. But
sure.
Is this comparable to cruel and unusual punishment? And I think there's something there to think about. I have partial answers, but I don't have a fully satisfying answer. And this is something that deserves to be tackled and looked into. And is there any kind of difference between them and that sort of thing? So yeah, I'm really glad that you've noticed that quality, because that's something I've really tried to do on the boards, is make sure that I'm not avoiding. I answer as directly as I can, even when it hurts. This is all in the interest of truth. This is what we
try our best to make it hurt.
Yeah. Oh, I know you do.
So, I mean, as I have been sometimes quoted as saying, conversation is a blood sport. So, that said, what we encourage you to do is check out the written portion of this, the Skeptics and Seekers blog. You can find it at reasonpress.net. That's reasonpress.net. And from there, just click on the Skeptics and Seekers icon, and it will take you to our blog post. Find the most current blog post, and there we take out the knives. I actually talk about the worst Christian arguments and the best atheist arguments, while Dale skewers the worst atheist arguments and highlights the best Christian arguments. It's a fantastic read, and next week we will be talking about that, and it will be slightly less of a congenial discussion. It's Skeptics and Seekers, the cage match.
Oh, okay. I'm looking forward to that. It should be a good time, definitely.
Absolutely. A good time had by all. Reason Press, you can find Still Unbelievable, the book. You can download it for free. If you'd like to ask any questions, click on Ask an Atheist Anything and leave your questions there. As always, read the Skeptics and Seekers blog, listen to the podcast, and we'll be back next week.
Excellent. All right. Good time. Talk to you then.